Baseball Podcast with Tyler Ramatula and David Klein. Welcome, Tyler.
Hey, what's going on, David?
It's kind of weird to have two of us here. We went 6 straight episodes of having guests on, so it's nice to have a little bit of alone time to reconnect.
Yeah,
and,
I know, right?
See where we've been. So
you got to nurture our relationship.
Yeah, seriously. And for anybody that might be listening in SoCal too, you're probably feeling it with us about how hot it is. Tyler's recording in his gym or in your garage right now.
Garage/gym, yeah. I'm roasting right now. Let's see. Hold on.
I was actually thinking of, what is it inside your garage?
Well, I don't know exactly what it's inside, but it's 90 outside right now, and It's really hot here. So
yeah. I was actually thinking about recording this from one of those plastic pools, with like a little martini glass and whatnot. It's hot out.
Kids are out back right now doing slip and slide and water balloons. So
mine are gone. I can't have them recording anywhere near me.
Yeah.
So what are we going to talk about today?
Well, not too much going on in the baseball world other than Alex Cora and the Red Sox and their punishment that just came out a few days ago. So we can talk about that. We have, from a few weeks ago, I think, the proposed MLB starting the season and playing all their games in Arizona. We can talk about that. I don't know if we talked about that with Casey a little bit.
We might have, but we'll rehash it because I think it's kind of changed a little bit.
Yeah. And then we had since, there isn't too much to talk about right now in the baseball world, Dave and I were going to go over our all-time list. Just any player you pick, starting 9. The details were we were going to do a starting 9, 1 bench infielder, 1 bench outfielder for a starting rotation of 5 pitchers, 4 relievers, and a closer, and of all time. So I've already told David, and mine's a little 90s biased because that's when I grew up, but I threw in a couple other guys, so you'll see.
That's good. I was never a really good student, so I completely flaked on the relievers section of it. But I mean, it starts with Mariano, and then it's basically whatever. But
I'm also using other closers as relievers. So
yeah, I got it. So why don't we get started about the punishment, because it's so new, and really the Red Sox weren't punished at all. Let's go over the punishment that the Red Sox had.
All right, you give me the details.
All right. So, because I love this. The Red Sox, they obviously had the similar as the Astros from 2017. They had replay. They didn't have trash cans. They didn't have a live feed, but they had signs being adjusted by the video play person from pre-game. So what happened was you probably got a packet when you were a player about what projected signs were going to be before a game. And then, if you were on second base, you'd probably relay what you got in information pre-game, right?
You mean when I played?
When you played. Well, how did you guys handle it?
We didn't, in the minor league and stuff, we didn't really have nothing written or anything. We might have there might have been tips of something, but
you might have gotten scouting and stuff, or in college at least.
Yeah, and it wasn't but nothing was really sign based, honestly.
Okay.
But I bet you in the big leagues at their level, they probably had stuff like that.
Yeah. So basically, teams would get packets of what scouting would say, and so the video play person was adjusting the scouting based on what he was seeing in game.
Okay.
So it wasn't the same thing. Now, it wasn't a live feed. It wasn't like Alex Cora, Carlos Beltran were feeding the information, but still, it's changing live game what's happening. I don't think it's as bad. I talked about that, I think, on episode 2, but it's within the rules. But anyways, the punishment was they lost their second round draft pick for this year, which is there even really a point to the draft this year?
Yeah, I don't think we've talked about it, but they're only doing the first 5 rounds, right?
I think they adjusted that to 10, but still, you're not having any players play in competition, so you're kind of basing it off of. And I'm sure that coming out of your sophomore year at UCLA, you were probably valued a lot differently than coming out of your junior year.
100%.
So
100%.
So I mean, guys climb and fall all the time. There's guys that weren't in the top 200 3 weeks before a draft that might be a top 50 pick because somebody sees something. So there's really not a point to the draft. So it's kind of weird. I don't know if that's really a punishment. Alex Cora was fined, suspended for this year, which basically isn't happening, and not for what he did with the Red Sox, but what he did with the Astros. And then the video monitor guy that did this was suspended for this year and next year. So the guy that gets the biggest punishment is, a low-level employee that they can hang it up.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of I just think it's so funny with that. The same thing with Cora and AJ Hinch. It's like they're still they still get to serve this year or is part of their punishment, and it's like everybody's sitting out. How is that? I don't know. That just doesn't make sense to me.
That's so stupid. And AJ Hinch is going to get hired back.
Wait, who's control? Is that Hinch? I mean, Manfred, is he deciding that?
Yeah. Yeah, and again,
I don't know. Has Bauer said anything about that? I haven't seen anything.
I don't know, but I don't think Bauer has nearly as much problem with what the Red Sox did.
Yeah.
I haven't listened to him, but I would think based on what I've heard with the Astros, because that was like live feed and he has a problem with their cheating with spin rate stuff. So but I have a fundamental problem more than anything else with basically putting it on this low-level video employee when Alex Cora was the main piece to the Astros thing, then goes to the Red Sox with their own thing, and that's what you're going to do. You're going to give them the half-hearted penalty.
Yeah. It's just finding a scapegoat.
Yeah, and it's so obvious. And, honestly, Manfred probably, if this whole coronavirus thing hadn't distracted everything, he might have had to have stepped down with the amount of momentum that was going against him with what he's done.
Yeah.
So it's still fundamentally wrong. Anything that sometimes, the punishment is what makes it worse.
The problem is, I'm going to go back to it, but there's no actual punishment when everybody else is sitting out. Everybody else is sitting out their time.
I know.
They're not missing out on anything.
It's kind of like giving a pitcher a 4-game suspension.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is.
I forgot about that. That's another thing I've talked about is the pitchers get to have any of those games concluded in their suspensions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
It's kind of like when teams and the Dodgers were guilty of this. They'd have like 3 off days in a 10-day period and would put 2 guys on the DL to keep people fresh.
Yeah.
Just, so yeah, I've never gotten the whole 10-game suspension, so they're missing basically 2 starts.
Yeah.
Or 1 start if you have enough off days. So.
But versus a position player, they would be that'd be 10 full games.
Yeah. That hurts a lot more.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, I just have a problem with them actually calling this a punishment for them when everybody's being punished then right now.
Yeah, and then it's such a disincentive, or it's not disincentive. It's an actual incentive to actually cheat and kind of break these rules, because the Red Sox won the World Series. Not only were they not fined $10 million like the Astros were, they weren't fined anything.
I thought they were only fined 10 or 5.
The Astros?
Yeah,
I thought it was 10. But all right, a lot's happened in the world since that story. But yeah, they were fined some amount of money, and the Red Sox weren't even fined. And the draft picks, basically nothing.
Nothing. Yeah, so. And second round, they still get their first round draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
Why the second?
Yeah.
What's the thought process there?
Thought process is it's the Red Sox. They they're cut above. So.
Now, you're pretty good at that Boston accent, man.
I know.
I can't do it.
Well, you got to think about being like you got to dumb down your intelligence like 40 IQ points, and then
I hope my aunt and uncle in Boston are listening to this right now.
Yeah, no, that's a hidden talent you don't know about. I have some pretty good voiceover character stuff. So
there you go.
But yeah, you basically, I think it's East Coast favoritism. So that's it.
Yeah. So Astros are off easy, Red Sox off easy, no punishment really. And all right, well then let's talk about even. So the potential is if Major League Baseball does get something together. They were talking about playing at least half of the season and everybody in Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, so there were different stuff thrown out. It's kind of hard to keep track of each story. One was they put everybody in Arizona. One was that they put half in Arizona, wherever your actual spring training was, and then realign divisions for this year only.
That'd be weird.
Yeah, so you'd have.
You wouldn't really have a National League or American League then.
No, you'd have like
Grapefruit and Arizona whatever, Cactus League.
Cactus League. So the Cactus League, the West would be like the Angels, Dodgers, Padres, Rockies,
Mariners,
something like that, or Giants. And then the Central would be, or the Rockies would be the Central with whatever teams were there. So that makes less sense to me. That the whole Arizona thing, here's the problem I have with Arizona. We're not going to get the season started until July, maybe.
But that would be exactly what a half season, right? July, right. August, September.
Right. You want to play games outside in 110-degree heat.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, that's what we were talking about with Casey, though, right?
Yeah.
They could do that. Well, not do it outside, but do it. They would obviously utilize Chase Field, which has a closed, or it's an indoor stadium, and they could do triple headers between the different teams, right?
Right.
Or they could even do more. I mean, they could probably to make it work. They'd probably do morning games. Morning and just get as many teams as they needed to.
Well, Chase Stadium is only one field, so that's only 3 of the 15 games that you would have on a given day. So the other 12 games have to be played somewhere. So
is that how many would be 12 games?
Well, you have 30 teams, and if they all faced off against each other, that's 15 games.
Okay, no, I was just talking Arizona, because it'd be less than that. How many teams are in Arizona?
Well, I'm saying if you did all 30 teams, I think it's like 16. It's either 16 and 14, 14, 16, something like that.
Okay.
But if you had all 30 teams there, I think from a logistical standpoint, it might not be that hard if, let's say, certain hospitals, especially in Jewish communities, they on Saturdays stop off at every floor automatically. Like nobody has to press an elevator button. So you could put, let's say, the Dodgers. Let's say you took a Marriott close to one of the hotels.
Mm-hmm.
You could put teams. The Dodgers on floor 1, the Angels on floor 2. And then do that in like 3 hotels. Have everybody separated, segregated, social distancing. I think the biggest critical thing is how fast we get antibody testing.
I went and got tested yesterday. I should get my results back either today or tomorrow.
And you know what? Thinking about what happened, you had it.
I think I had it.
I probably had it. Our whole team had it, by the way.
Yeah, Carter's school had it.
Everybody everybody on our team before everything broke, it was like this rolling flu, and everybody said it was the worst flu that they've ever had.
It was the worst I've ever had.
I remember the Hesley was saying that that it was horrible, and yeah, everybody was pretty much out.
Yeah,
I think this thing's going to be. They're already finding out, like, if you have the amount of, like, 4% of the LA population had COVID antibodies in their system. So if you took that number, extrapolated it out to like New York, that's like 2.5 million people. So wow. I think there's a lot more people that have it. Yeah. So
crazy.
But once we get more testing, and hopefully that comes in a few weeks, and we're able to test somebody, I still never understood testing. So let's say the Dodgers get tested, right?
Okay.
If somebody but it's got a 2-week lead time. If a clubby has it, and he's putting all the uniforms out, then they got tested that day, but they're all going to get it later that day.
Well, and what about, I think we talked about this earlier too, is the players and their families. Like, everybody has to be completely segregated and quarantined by their teams and their families? Is that in the hotel rooms, you mean? Like, I
think part of the conversation has been segregating them from their families. How's that going to go over?
Yeah.
So there's still so many questions, but the Arizona,
I guess if you look at it though, it's 3 months. I mean, not that that's ideal, but some of those guys might.
Well, I think a lot of the guys at the end of the day, they might not be happy about it, but thinking about it too, these guys have a labor contract that they have to renegotiate in a year.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look good if MLB owners have already paid an advance to not even play if they're not going to kind of sacrifice a little bit on their own.
Yeah. I don't know.
Could you do it? 3 months away from the family?
I don't think so. I mean, you say it and it's like, oh, well, if you're in the big leagues, like, oh, you could probably do it. But that's a long time to be away from your family, you know? I don't know.
I couldn't not see my kids for even if you're doing FaceTime every day, it's still kind of different.
Yeah. I don't see everybody in the big leagues or all the guys getting together and agreeing with that.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a lot of, I kind of talked about it too, different thing, but baseball is kind of like the military in a way where you kind of go off for a few months and kind of do that, but you're coming home every 10 days and kind of doing that.
Well, and there's also times where like guys will, I mean, I guess they do have to deal with it at some level. I mean, some guys get sent to the Dominican and they don't take their wives and kids, I mean, in the off season, there's guys that get sent all the time to those winter leagues. And so I don't know, some of those guys just deal with it, but I don't know. That'd be really hard. It'd be really, really hard.
Yeah. So,
although, I mean, I would love to at least see half a season, I don't know if you heard, but I read something. I don't know if it's true or not, but the PGA Tour is going to come back in June. But theirs is different. I mean, it's one golfer they can complete out on a golf course. They can pretty much be segregated for the most part. So easier for them. But if that's the only sport I have to watch, man, I'm watching golf every day as much as I can.
I'm watching the weirdest stuff right now.
Oh, what about I don't know if anybody watching, if they'd seen the Chinese Professional Baseball League. They're playing right now.
No, the Taiwan League?
No, I'm not sure. But the only reason I knew about it was from John Boy's stuff on YouTube. He's been analyzing. There was a big brawl and stuff, but you could see that there are guys in the players in the dugouts wearing masks. And
how does that change a brawl?
Exactly. It's like everybody's out there in a huddle. I'm like this. Yeah, I think it was there was kind of a brawl. Yeah, that's right. Because some guy threw at another guy, but it just didn't really seem like it made any sense. But
I mean, if I kind of like to see the world burn. Like my role model is the Joker of all the stuff. If I was a pitcher, I might just chuck a few just to see if somebody would
came out.
Yeah. What do you do, like, for social distancing? Do you just chuck baseballs at each other?
I don't know. Well, technically, it's not. I mean, if you're playing catch, we joked with Kyle. We're like, if you sanitize the ball each time you throw it, because technically you're not.
Right.
Each time you touch a baseball and you throw it, and the other guy catches and touches it, you're technically not doing it.
I mean, what if Stanton hits a rocket to third base? You take a little bit of the hand sanitizer, kind of rub it off.
Well, that's just you have an excuse to get out of the way because you're like, I don't want to touch the ball. So that would have been my excuse. Not that I'm afraid of him or anything.
No. We've already gone over that. Yeah, so it'll be interesting. I'm sure it'll take twists and turns. I think the biggest thing is going to be the testing and seeing how that goes. And that's not anything baseball related. But, the owners, they want to get the games back. The players want to get the games back. And not just in baseball, every sport. And I don't think they care at this point about having fans this year in the stadiums.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we'll see. Even Dr. Fauci last week was kind of like, I can see a situation as long as there's social distancing, maybe at the end of the year, the season ticket holders can go.
God, but it's going to be so weird because the thought of now, like, getting back a stadium full of 40,000 people is like, you know how long that it'll be till we can do that, till the country's able to actually do that.
When you were in the minor leagues, like high A, how many people would go to a game on average?
Well, it's really dependent on what league you're in, or in team and city. But like my Florida State League, there was maybe, oh god, maybe like 30 people at those games. Then you're
Really?
playing it, yeah, 30 to 50 people in there, maybe. I don't know. It was empty, and you're playing in the nice big spring training.
Right. I mean, you're in the complex
and they're
ball.
empty. I mean, no, it's hot, so nobody's out there, and like, there's a couple teams that drew decent crowds, but like, you go to double A, man, we had like the stadium capacity I think was like 12,000, and they filled it out almost nightly. So
yeah,
where
was Low A again?
Low A was in Quad Cities.
Okay,
that was decent when it was warmer. Probably a few, I don't know, 5,000-6,000, somewhere in that ballpark.
So do you think most of the 30 people were scouts, or were they crazy fans?
That's the thing too. Yeah. Well, it was more in like a retirement community area in the nice part of Palm Beach or Jupiter. So there's a lot of old people. So it was really quiet. They didn't really know how to cheer. They didn't really know how to they just yelled at like the wrong time. And yeah, and then the rest of it was like, yeah, there's either it was scouts, or it was, in the minor leagues, you have pitchers going and doing the radar gun to like chart and stuff. So,
right. So explain that to me. So when you went to UCLA, obviously you had a ton of fans, and you had well, you guys weren't.
We're West Coast baseball is completely different. Like you look at any of the SEC or ACC schools, and they have decent. Even if they're not a decent pro, they get good fans. I mean, when you turn on like the super regionals or anything where you're watching the playoffs, the regionals or super regionals each year, you look at any of those like Arkansas, LSU, North Carolina, all these awesome big name schools over in the East Coast, they pack it out, and because that's their professional sport. Here it's like UCLA, is number one in the nation, or Stanford, and it's like, we would maybe get like 1,000.
Maybe I'm only thinking about like the Fullerton Super Regionals.
Yes. Like that was like a big one. Like we had, I think for us, we had like 3,000, and that was packing out, like, standing room only. We played LSU in the regionals in 2010, and that was the year right after they won the College World Series. So we drew them we were hosting at UCLA. LSU came in, and they had more LSU fans than we had at UCLA fans.
Yeah, well, it's LSU. But I guess the point I was going to make was,
yeah, sorry,
totally
just ruined where you're going with that.
Yeah, asshole. The Florida State League with those 30 fans, that had to be quieter than like our Little League games and how the parents are.
Yeah, it's a pretty lonely feeling. Especially after you make an error too. It's just,
how's it different as a player? That's what I was going to ask. Like with just silence, does it affect your psyche more than having fans?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what, I guess, part of the reason what separates the good players from some of that, because it's easy to get up for the games when, there's lots of people, and, like our big, the one game that we would get in the Florida State League that was packed was 4th of July. And like, it was easy to get up for those games. You're kind of adrenaline rush, but it's for those games that, when there's 30 people in the stands, like, you're still playing, you still got to be there mentally. So I don't know. I'm not going to lie. It was harder for sure.
Okay. That's what I want to get at for the most part. Like, how much do the fans actually psychologically help? Even from a negative perspective.
I would say a lot. Yeah, I found myself at least kind of going through the motions at times when it was a Tuesday night, and we're playing, we're playing the other minor league, the Marlins or something like that in the Florida State League, and there's nobody there. It's quiet. It's hot. It's humid, and like, you kind of go through the motions a little bit, but you do the same thing, and you pack out, and there's 10,000 people in front of you. You're kind of like, oh, I don't want to embarrass myself here, but
right.
Honestly though, that does separate a lot of the good players. It's about not about like throwing at bats and throwing opportunities away, So just being locked in no matter what.
Well, I kind of, one guy that I think rises to the occasion with the Dodgers a lot is Max Muncy. Like anytime you needed him for a big moment, or Turner, like anytime you need him for a big moment, he shows up. I wonder how much psychologically for guys like that this could affect them.
I don't know.
It's just gonna be it's gonna be interesting to see. We don't.
That is something. I mean, I didn't think about it. It's like, have everybody go play in front of empty. I mean, but they did it. Not that long ago, there was a game that got played. I think I want to say in like Chicago, the White Sox or something, a few years ago, that they had to play in front of an empty stadium.
I kind of feel like I remember that, but that's
something that happened. Like,
it's either a game or a half game. We're talking about 90 games with several doubleheaders, and you've got to perform day in, day out like that. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see some of those guys who, they might have like a career low just from playing, I know it's only half season, but
I mean, is Mookie Betts like a 230 hitter when he doesn't have a crowd behind him?
Yeah. I don't know. It'll test some guys, I'm sure.
There's guys.
Although I'm sure that when you're getting a paycheck as high as these guys are.
And that's what they're playing for too. Because the other thing too with the amount of money is, first of all, the teams are losing hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue without concessions, jerseys, beer, anything at the gate, all that kind of stuff. And that's going to roll down to the new player contracts. And if we have 20% unemployment in this country, and people for a while, 2 years we'll say, and this is going to cover the player contracts, is Mookie Betts worth $40 million? Mookie Betts is worth $40 million, but in that new economy, is he worth $40 million?
You can't say he is.
Yeah, you can't say much. So I think we kind of joked about it before, but the luckiest man in baseball is probably Garrett Cole.
Yes.
Yeah,
he cashed in at the right time. Yep.
I mean, so we'll see. It'll all be interesting. But
yeah.
I don't know. But that's not the biggest news. The biggest news is, unfortunately, Vin Scully took a fall this last week.
Yeah, I didn't hear about that until you just told me. All I remember is a few weeks ago was I know it's true, but I saw the message that he sent out to everybody. That video message that he sent out. I can't remember, a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Telling everybody to cherish their time at home and with their loved ones and everything. So that was the last thing I heard from Vince. So that's what I mean. Is he all right?
Well, he took a fall at his house, and kind of the scary thing, I know when people get older, the thing that goes is they break their hip, and that's kind of the end. And we didn't hear that, and hopefully everything's fine. But I remember Chick Hearn died falling off a ladder in his home. He was like a couple steps on his ladder, and that was kind of it. So, 2020 can go fuck itself already as is. Just don't do that to any Dodger fan psyche, because that's just like too much at this point.
Yeah, that's too bad.
I know.
2020, man, this is a rough. I was going good. I felt like we had some good mojo, some good momentum going in 2020, and then March rolled around.
We started a pod. No, I saw this funny video. I gotta find it where somebody is talking to themselves here in April. They're talking to themselves in January. And they're talking about like how carbon emissions are down like 40%, and the January person's like, "Oh my God, that's so great!" Like whatever.
Yeah.
And then they were like, and the January person was like, "Oh my God, these Australia wildfires, they're like the story of the decade."
Yeah.
And April, you was
just
like,
just wait.
And and then I mean, Kobe dying.
Yeah.
2020 it's
rough start to a new decade, man.
Oh yeah. But we I think back to the influenza thing of 1918 and how that just devastated 50 million people across the world. And in the U.S. and around the world, we still had the Roaring '20s and stuff. So, stuff goes out, but we cycle through and we'll recover and do better.
It will.
So anybody that doesn't think from a long-term perspective, it probably helps. So
we'll get there. It'll take some time.
I know. So let's
get back on a positive note. No.
I know. Let's go to our all-time list. We kind of talked about this because MLB Network had this thing where they did the all-time list and they kind of had their own thing. And they had some stupid ones. They had some great
and I
ones.
didn't see any of it, so this is not. I'm glad I didn't see any of it to do my own thing.
Right. And I kind of saw it, but I whatever. Most of my names, some of the names are obvious, right? So you're going to have like Babe Ruth on most everybody's list. I heard that somebody might
obvious not. How obvious that is.
You're a fucking idiot. But if you have a team facing off each other and you don't have Ruth on it, that's kind of stupid. But I'm just going to be honest. I played a little bit dirty, and you'll see right off the bat how I played.
All right. All right, you go first.
Here's what
then.
we're going to do.
Okay, yeah.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do position players, infield. Then we're going to do outfield, catcher, or starting pitchers, and then relievers. Okay. And I'll do the relievers on the fly. So we'll start with catcher, and here's how I played dirty. Who'd you have for your best catcher all time?
Ivan Rodriguez.
Who?
Ivan Rodriguez, Pudge.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking Pudge. Pudge would be like top 3 for me. With Johnny Bench, I think for as much accolades as he got defensively, he was still underrated defensively for how great he was. I think that if people had seen him in New York like Yogi Berra, he would have been higher than Bench. I think it was where he played. Also partially played into he was on steroids with, the whole Texas crew. But
the 90s
Pudge
era,
is a good one. I went with a guy that hit 350 as a catcher and hit 638 home runs. Probably one of the most famous Negro League hitters of all time, Josh Gibson, who was probably the Negro League's Babe Ruth.
So I didn't know any of that was open.
I told you I play dirty. No, I mean, if I was going to do it, I would do Johnny Bench if it was just MLB.
Yeah.
But, a lot of these guys in the Negro Leagues, didn't have a chance. But they would have, you take a guy like Josh Gibson, 350, lifetime average, 640 home runs as a catcher.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. But there's so many guys that could probably be, I didn't look on that list and use it, but I agree. There's so many of those guys that probably should have been included.
Yeah. Well, I had one potentially as a pitcher.
Satchel Paige.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you ever looked at Satchel Paige, but he pitched across 4 decades. That's how much talent he had.
Yeah. That's crazy.
He was just a beast. But all right. What about first baseman?
Pujols in his prime.
Good.
I'm not talking about these last few years, but I don't think. Yeah.
I love Pujols. He would probably be my number 2. But I had to go with Lou Gehrig.
Okay.
For sure.
This is Lou Gehrig.
It's Lou Gehrig. And you think about how his life was robbed too. He still had a few years.
Yeah.
To build up those numbers under normal circumstances.
But there's even some guys there was first base was, like Frank Thomas. That was a guy that I always loved too.
I love Thomas.
Or even I don't know, Tomey was a guy that I was having tough time with. But I guess you can kind of DH him a little too. So I don't know. I had to think about it a little bit.
Frank Thomas was a rookie when I was 10. So think about how old you were when you were 10. He was one of my favorite hitters.
Yeah.
If you talk about an infield bench player, I would put Pujols probably because I put Gehrig, but
okay.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely that.
All right, second base.
Well, the greatest second baseman in UCLA history.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Jackie Robinson.
Nope. That's the wrong answer. Until this moment, I didn't realize that I played the same position as Jackie Robinson at the same school. So you just said that. Yeah, that's cool.
But we do know you're not the smartest of the two in this show. So.
Yeah, you're right. I won't argue that. Okay, so you picked Robinson?
I picked Jackie. How can you not pick Jackie? Come on.
I mean, I'm looking. Okay, no, I have nothing. Like, I obviously nothing against Jackie Robinson, but I had to go with Craig Biggio.
Yeah, you're going into way big recency bias. I mean, and Biggio was a steroid guy too. So
I'm not getting into any of that.
No, I know. I have. Look, my third baseman is a steroid guy too. So don't worry about it. All right. Probably the toughest position to grade out one person over another. You could go any way. Who'd you pick?
For shortstop?
Yeah.
Jeter.
Yeah. See, Jeter would also be on my bench with Pujols as whatever. I went with old school with Honus Wagner.
Yeah.
3,400 hits, 330 on a lifetime batting average.
I think my toughest time with those guys, like, yeah, the stats, like, you can't argue with a lot of them, but being in such a different era, like back then, and like the pitching was not, I don't want to say subpar, but it wasn't obviously not what it's like today, or even in the modern era.
Well, it's all different. I mean, that's what they use, OPS plus or how much better you were statistically than the average to what your era is. When you look at kind of those, I think the answer is a lot different for pitchers than it would be for hitters, because hitters, you're still playing 9 innings, 150-ish games a year. With pitchers, when you're looking at this list, Cy Young would pitch, 40, 45 games a year. Nobody pitches that anymore.
Right.
Fernando Valenzuela threw, I think, 300 innings, something like that. 325 innings.
Yeah.
For like 3 straight years. So, the Kershaw now is not going to, in his peak, is not going to approach that.
Right.
So I think it's way different for pitchers.
Yeah. And going back to Jeter, my reason with him, there's plenty of guys that are more talented that put up better numbers than him. But I'm part of my factor is like, this is game 7 of the World Series. And who do I want in this lineup? Who do I know is going to lead, like partially lead and be a gamer? Who can I rely on in situations all around,
I'll give you that. In terms of, wasn't his 3,000th hit a home run?
Yeah, off of David Price. Yep.
And his last hit was like a game-winning hit.
Yeah. His last home game, he hit a walk-off single to right field, a total Jeter-esque hit inside out to right field. Walk off, and then his actual last game again in Fenway was an infield single. So I mean, he was just a guy that always rose to the occasion with all in the playoffs, and that to me also factored into a lot of the guys, like how clutch they were too.
And I bet you if coronavirus came up to Jeter, it'd be like, fuck it, I'm out of here. I don't want any part of this.
Yep.
His immune system would probably destroy it. All right. So what did you have for third base?
Very recent, current player. I'm sure you could guess this one.
Arenado.
Yeah. I think he's the best defensive third baseman of all time, and he hits 40 home runs every year.
Yeah.
And hits at least almost leads the league in RBIs every year too.
Arenado, if he has a full career, will probably go down as that. Yeah. That's who you want for your team. And the mindset too. You watch him play, he's just on fire, passion. Third base is such an interesting one. I put just because I know what his peak was, but A-Rod. But that's a controversial one for me because I would probably put Beltre. You could put Mike Schmidt.
Yep.
You could put Brooks Robinson if you looked at any of his stuff.
They say he was. I mean, it's always between. They say he was the best defensive third baseman.
Yeah.
Of all time, So,
but the fact that Arenado already is in that kind of league, he's at the lower end of that league because he hasn't had the time to build up the amount of years. But he's in that league, he's pretty special. So I would go with that.
Okay. So, but you went. Who did you go? You went A-Rod.
I went with A-Rod. Just he's really a shortstop, but he just moved over from Jeter.
Yeah.
Which is funny because Jeter was probably the worst defensive of the two.
Yeah.
So Jeter should have been the third baseman, but nobody was moving number two.
Nobody's going to move the captain.
No. All right. So for outfield, we're just going to.
I was going to say for outfield, we did we were putting any outfielder in any position, right?
Yeah, it didn't have to be a left fielder for left field.
Okay, good.
But let's do a DH too.
Yeah, I have a DH.
Okay.
Go ahead. Left field, or we're just going to read through all of them. So for the outfield, the 3 spots for either left, center, or right, any mix. Mike Trout.
Duh.
Ken Griffey Jr.
Right.
Mickey Mantle.
See, all great picks. Ken Griffey was my second favorite player growing up. Tony Gwynn, I've talked about on this show, was definitely my favorite growing up, even though he wasn't a Dodger. I just think that the Dodgers always got the wrong brother in every transaction. Side story: Dodgers got Chris Gwynn, while the Padres got Tony Gwynn. Dodgers got Wilton Guerrero and refused to sign Vladimir Guerrero. And then who is the other? Oh, Dodgers traded away Pedro Martinez and kept Ramon Martinez. So
when it comes to brothers, the Dodgers just should do the opposite of what they're feeling.
If you think what the late 90s Dodgers could have been.
With those 3 guys.
And Piazza, by the way, who they traded away.
Yeah.
You could have talked about a string of World Series instead of 31 years of frustration.
Good point.
Yeah, there's no argument with Trout. I mean, how could you?
Yeah.
I think where you go kind of sideways with me is not putting Babe Ruth in there.
Dude, well, who do you want to see? Who do you want to see going after a fly ball? Babe Ruth or any of those 3 guys?
Oh, that's our level breaker now is who we want to see running after a fly ball, not who would mash 750 home runs in a career. And I would take
these guys, their defense in this game 7. In my mindset was thinking like you need somebody to win a game. That could be defensively too. So all 3 of those guys.
The guy literally changed the game.
I understand that.
Hitting more than 10 home runs before.
I get that. He might have been ahead of his time a little bit, but I don't think. I don't know. I can't. I don't think Babe Ruth's not going to go get a ball that any of those 3 guys are going to go get. And with all of those, I mean, Griffey. I think he had what? He had 600 plus home runs with the athleticism. I mean, you had Trout, he's gonna take. Trout's gonna be what? He's gonna be on pace for what? Like at least 600 home runs.
Not if coronavirus takes.
Yeah, you're right. Good point.
By the way, what this is gonna do to guys and numbers like Trout.
That's why you just hope that it's this season. It could be like a hurt season for some people's career, I mean,
well, Trout, it's not going to affect Trout going to the Hall of Fame, but let's take somebody who's
a fringe guy. Yeah, for sure.
It could really affect their numbers.
100%. A lot of guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was my thing. I mean, those guys all still mashed home runs. All 3 of those guys.
Yeah, but Ruth wasn't just the home runs. I mean, he could have been one of my top 5 pitchers, for the first.
He stopped pitching after that.
But I mean, if running is your metric, then why don't you have Ricky Henderson in there?
True, he was a guy that I had. I kind of forgot about him honestly, but he's a guy that I've thought in the past. But
yeah, it was a pretty weak list. I mean,
maybe I'll switch him. I have another guy in the bench. Maybe I'll switch him. All right.
And then my third one, I had Trout. And
Wait,
Ruth.
so you have Trout, Ruth,
Ted Williams.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, I kind of forgot about him.
And then who's the Cardinal? Like
Stan Musial. I know those.
Stan Musial. It was between Musial and Williams for me.
Those are 2 guys that I think, that it could definitely be worthy of that.
You know what I loved? Musial had like 3,200 hits. Or 3,600 hits, something like that. Let's say it was 3,600. He had 3,600 hits. He had like 1,813 at home, 1,813 away. Talk about
perfect splits. Yeah.
Talk about consistent. So
yeah.
But I had to go with Williams.
I mean, yeah, you can't argue those.
And he's a San Diego kid too.
There you go.
Since we're going for shit that doesn't matter, he's a San Diego kid.
Oh, you went there. All right, give me your DH.
By the way, I'm sorry. I curse a lot, and more as this quarantine is going, I care less and less.
I don't care.
It's not like we're monetizing these videos anyways.
Right.
So, but for anybody that hears me curse more than I had before, don't worry about it. Barry Bonds has to be your DH to me. How is Barry Bonds not your DH?
I left Barry Bonds off this list because I don't like. Okay.
How?
Yes, I will say. I mean, this might contradict what I was saying about who would I want in a Game 7 like to go and like win this. I just don't like the type of ball player he was. Like, not physically. I just don't like. Maybe I don't like the person he was. And
do you know how much effort it took me to put a giant on this list at all?
Right.
And
yeah, okay. I mean, I'm not gonna argue it. I mean that makes sense.
The guy had like a 60 WAR before he ever started taking steroids.
But okay, yeah, I can't argue his numbers. I really can't.
How many 40-40 seasons has Trout had?
I don't know. None.
None.
Okay. I didn't know this was going to be a quiz on stats. No, I can't argue Barry Bonds. You know, he should. I mean, honestly, with the list, something about him and the steroid thing. Like, I know that I didn't factor that in for some of the other guys, but I just couldn't put him on the list. Yeah. Him with the controversy and being a teammate, you know, or you hear about him in the locker room with him and Jeff Kent and how selfish both of those guys really were. But like, I don't know. I put the steroid stuff on the back burner, but I don't know if I like the guy, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's why I picked David Ortiz.
David, if you want to add the fun quotient, like think about a clubhouse with Babe Ruth, who was a notorious like
jokester,
everything. Yeah. And then with like Adrian Beltre and David Ortiz, that would be like the most fun clubhouse.
It would. Yeah. But when I look at him and how clutch he was in the postseason, and he was one of those guys that always rose to the occasion.
Well, we also have recency bias than, if you're watching guys now. Plus, we have more series.
I for sure have a lot of recency bias because I probably paid attention more than the games back then. So
yeah.
But I was debating between like him, Edgar Martinez, Jim Thome, but I picked Ortiz.
I was thinking about this when we had our last episode with Billy. You look at that Indians team with Thome, Manny Ramirez, Albert Bell, Kenny Lofton,
Carlos Baerga,
Alomar. How that team didn't roll off 3 or 4 straight.
I know.
World Series is just insane.
David Justice.
Yeah, they were just insane.
Yeah, that's
but
too bad.
That shows you playoff randomness and how it affects.
It shows you anybody can win at any time in baseball.
Yeah,
really can.
Like
that's what makes it so awesome. You like the Giants. All right.
By the way, two of those 3 World Series teams were the shittiest World Series winners of all time.
2010, 12, and 14.
Yeah, like 2 of those. I think 12.
I don't remember too much. I remember the 14 was against the Royals. 12 was against
Texas, I think.
Yeah.
No, 10 was against Texas.
Yeah, you're right.
12. Who was 12? Wasn't it? Oh my God. Wasn't the Red Sox? No, because they sucked.
They were 13. The Red Sox won in 13.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
It was Texas, and then, oh my God. Now I'm going, it was Detroit.
Oh.
It was Detroit, and we talked about it because it was Verlander, David Price, Scherzer.
That's right.
And Anibal Sanchez.
Yeah, that's right.
Like
filthy.
Yeah. All right. Let's go pitchers.
Okay.
Because this episode's going to go long if we don't cut this off.
Yeah, I'm sweating out here. I'm just
I'll keep you in there. All right.
Let's hear your 5. Starting
Walter
5.
Walter Johnson.
Okay.
Never saw him play. I know I'm older than you, but never saw him play.
Sure.
Cy Young.
Okay.
Clemens.
Okay.
Bob Gibson.
Okay.
Sandy Koufax.
All right.
We talk about having the guy that you want clutch. Sandy Koufax as a pitcher was it. So was Bob Gibson, but tossing shutout in the World Series. So.
Yep. I had Gibson on my list. I had only one of those guys on my list, and that was him. So I have Gibson, Nolan Ryan, Pedro Martinez, Randy Johnson, Greg Maddux. And you can add Greg Maddux to that list of jokesters. Keeping the clubhouse fun, so.
Yeah.
So those, I don't know. And again, I look at that list and I'm like, geez, it's very, like Martinez, Johnson, Maddux are all like the 90s bias. Yeah. I feel like I'm looking at, but they all, I think they deserve to be on this list. They could.
If you went to the Negro Leagues, you could look at
Satchel Paige. Yep. I agree.
But yeah, I mean, pitchers are so much tougher, I guess, because like we just talked about, Cy Young would pitch 45 games a year. Maddux was never pitching more than, after the first few years, more than 35 on the high end. So, and same with Pedro and Randy.
Yeah.
Randy was filthy. Pedro, you can't argue really with them, but that's who I went with.
Yeah.
So.
No, and I can't argue with any of yours. So
I think I'll kill you with Babe Ruth, and
that's our biggest. Players. That's our biggest when we're button heads right now.
How do you not have Babe Ruth? That should be the thumbnail.
Is that like a sin? Is that a sin in baseball to like not?
If you're picking the best players of all time, yeah, it's a sin. So, all right, who do you have for relievers?
Okay. And again, this is probably more to guys that I know versus. I mean, there could have been relievers before my time that I didn't really pay attention to as much. But I have Aroldis Chapman, Billy Wagner, Dennis Eckersley, and Eric Gagne. So I put a Dodger in there for you.
How generous of you. Yeah, see, my list, I don't have a list. So I have Mariano.
Okay. Oh, yeah, Mariano's my closer as well. But I think that's
Mariano.
You could pencil that in on everybody's list.
Eckersley, I would probably put on the list. I mean, he, like Babe Ruth changed baseball, he changed the whole relieving aspect of it. Yeah, I mean, I would look at Gagne for a couple of years. Relievers are so hard because they're great for a year or 2 or 3 years for the most part. Almost
Brian Wilson.
I know. Look at Kenley for like a 3 or 4 year period.
Yeah.
I would put him second to Mariano for like a 3 or 4 year period. But he struggled the last couple of years.
Right.
None of these guys besides Mariano, and I don't even think Trevor Hoffman, great pitcher, but he didn't have the consistency that Mariano had.
Right.
And he played for the Padres. So
so you can't put him on the list.
Well, no, I put Tony Gwynn on the list.
I'm kidding.
He didn't get the limelight that Mariano did.
Right.
Is kind of my point. So I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see how many people make fun of you with Babe Ruth, but that's kind of my list.
All right. Well, there's 2 more that we have to put on there. Your bench spot, 1 infielder, 1 outfielder.
Okay, if I was doing 1 infielder, I would put. If I was putting 1 infielder, I would probably put Pujols because I didn't put him in.
Okay.
One outfielder. It's just a personal favorite, and he is great. I would put Tony Gwynn, even though I know there are better options there.
Yeah. I had him on the potential list, but I didn't end up choosing him. For outfield, I had this is I think you could probably argue this. There's tons of guys that are, but I loved Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I'm so used to saying that now. Vladimir Guerrero.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Just as like I could have him come pinch hit in at bat, and I don't know. He was one, but then when you said Ricky Henderson, I was thinking, ooh, he would be a really good guy also. Yeah. So I don't know. I might stick with Vladdy. I'm going to stick with Vladdy.
Vladdy's one of those fun guys in the clubhouse.
Another one, yep. So you got him. I think if you had Henderson in there, he might just stir the pot and piss people off.
Yeah. Could you imagine, like, if they didn't get along, like Ricky Henderson and Barry Bonds together in the clubhouse? God.
I know. See, you're...
You know what? Next episode, we'll have the all-time asshole list, and we can build like the best clubhouse for party, like who you want to invite to a party, and who you wanted to shoot in the head.
All right, let's do that. Let's get like a bunch of those types of things. Hold on.
You're in trouble.
Yeah, almost done. Okay. I got in trouble.
See, people, there's real life that goes on.
Yeah. Wife came in to the garage, but no. And then my infielder, my bench infielder is George Brett.
It's a good one. That he goes on the asshole list, by the way.
Yeah, but he was just a fucking ball player, dude. You gotta love that. I love that. So my dad and my whole family, we were all like the number 5. Growing up, I was the number 5, like at UCLA, when I could, when the number wasn't taken.
Mm-hmm.
I was always number 5 because of my family, and they were doing it because of George Brett. So, kind of like our family number.
Got it.
But yeah.
And you're gonna be a family 5 pretty soon.
Exactly. We got another one coming. A few weeks away.
Almost like you designed it that way.
That's right.
All right. Since you're in trouble, why don't we cut it off here? And
but thanks for everyone if you made it to the end, and let us know what you think, and don't be afraid to leave Babe Ruth off of your list. It's okay. You're not alone. I'm here with you, so it's okay.
You're alone. Okay, bye everybody.
All right, see ya.